On the night of December the 28th, 2011, a gray wolf walked across an invisible line on a map and into the state of California. Nobody saw it happen. The only witnesses were a handful of biologists in Oregon, sitting at computer screens, watching a single dot move across a digital map as a satellite collar on the animal's neck reported its position every few hours. The dot drifted south, reached the Oregon border and crossed it. And the people watching understood, with something close to disbelief, exactly what they were seeing. For the first time in 87 years, there was a wild wolf in California. The animal had a name that was really a number, or 7, the 7th wolf ever fitted with a tracking collar in the state of Oregon. He was about 2.5 years old, and he had walked more than 1,000 miles to reach that line on the map, across highways and wilderness and old lava flows, through country no wolf had set foot in for nearly a century. He was not lost. He was looking for something, and in looking for it, he became the leading edge of one of the strangest comebacks in American wildlife. The return of an animal that the United States had spent 100 years and enormous effort deliberately wiping off the map. It would mean less if he were the only one. He was the first of many. Since OR7 made his crossing, wolves have walked back into one western state after another, into ground that had been empty of them for generations. Another wolf, this one tagged OR93, dispersed out of Oregon in 2021 and pushed even further than OR7 ever did, threading through 16 California counties all the way to the edge of Los Angeles, the farthest south a wild wolf had been in the state in 100 years. In Colorado, wolves walked down out of Wyoming entirely on their own, and in 2021, they did something no wolves had done in that state in almost a century. They had pups. The reports keep arriving. The tracks, the trail camera photos, the dots on the screens. A predator we erased is coming back, and in most of these places, nobody brought it. It came on its own. This is the space the whole story lives in. These wolves were not released by anyone. They walked in. But it is not a settled return either, because the pioneers that lead these journeys very often die, and a single wolf crossing a state line is not the same thing as a population taking root. The animal is real, present, and documented. Whether it stays is a different question, and it is one that has very little to do with the wolves. To understand why they keep coming, you have to understand the animal and the single instinct that drives the entire story. The gray wolf, Canis lupus, is a pack animal, and a pack is a family, a breeding pair and their offspring, hunting and raising young, together across a territory that can span hundreds of square miles. Before human beings went to war with it, the gray wolf was the most widely distributed land predator on Earth, ranging across nearly all of the northern hemisphere. And it carries one behavior that explains OR7 and every wolf like him. When a young wolf reaches 2 or 3 years old, it leaves. It strikes out from the pack it was born into, alone, to find a mate and a territory of its own. And a dispersing wolf will walk almost unimaginable distances to do it. That instinct does not care about state lines or highways or the fact that the map says there are no wolves where it is going. OR7 was born in the spring of 2009 into a pack called the Imnaha in the Wallowa Mountains in the far northeastern corner of Oregon. His father was the alpha male of that pack. His own parents had come from Idaho. Biologists fitted him with a satellite collar in early 2011, and that September, like countless young males before him, he left his family and went looking for a mate. The trouble was, there were almost no mates to find. When OR7 set out, there were only about 21 known wolves in the entire state of Oregon, nearly all of them clustered in that one northeastern corner. So he kept walking. He went southwest, and he did not stop. In November, he was photographed by a hunter's trail camera in western Oregon, the first wild wolf seen in that part of the state since 1947. A month later, he crossed into California, the first since 1924. He spent the following year zigzagging through 7 northeastern California counties, covering thousands of miles. A children's art contest gave him a name, Journey, chosen openly as part of an effort to make the wolf too famous for anyone to kill. He became, for a while, the most famous wolf in the world, a single animal walking across the West, putting a face on a question the country had been arguing about for decades. The reason there were no wolves for him to find is not a mystery, it was a policy. Gray wolves were native to California and the entire western United States, widespread, woven into the landscape and into the cultures of the tribes who lived alongside them for thousands of years. And then, beginning in the middle of the 1800s, the country set out to destroy them. There were state bounties paid for every dead wolf. There were federal predator control campaigns that laced animal carcasses with strychnine and scattered them across the land. The wolves' prey was hunted out from under them. It was thorough, and it worked. California's last wolves were gone by 1924. Oregon's were gone by the mid-1940s. Yellowstone National Park lost its wolves in the 1920s. This was not a population that dwindled by accident. It was an animal that an entire nation decided to erase, and very nearly did. There is a piece of bitter symmetry in OR7's route. Born to the first pack to return to Oregon, he may well have walked past the very spot in the Umpqua Forest where the last of Oregon's original wolves was killed. What made his journey possible at all was a decision made in the 1990s to undo a piece of that. In 1995 and 1996, biologists captured 66 wolves in Canada and released them into Yellowstone and the wilderness of central Idaho. The wolves did exactly what wolves do. They formed packs, they bred. The population spread outward across the northern Rockies, and some of them swam the Snake River into Oregon, which is how OR7's parents came to be there at all. OR7 was simply the next step in that expansion, the disperser pushing past the edge of the known range into empty ground. And he did the thing the whole species is built to do. He found her. By 2014, after roaming alone for nearly 3 years, Oregon 7 had settled in the forests of southwestern Oregon with an uncollared female and a litter of pups. Officials named the new family the Rogue Pack, the first wolf pack in western Oregon since the 1940s. His descendants would go on to found packs of their own in California. The 1,000-mile journey of a lonely wolf had not been a freak event. It had been a beginning. And here is what that tracking collar really revealed, the part that should change how you think about every wolf sighting you have ever heard dismissed. Or 7 walked more than 1,000 miles across one of the most heavily populated regions of the country, and almost no human being ever laid eyes on him. He traveled at night. He moved through wilderness and roadless country. He avoided people with the same instinct that had kept his kind alive through a century of being shot on sight. Without that collar, his entire historic journey would have been invisible, a scattering of unconfirmed sightings, a few blurry photos, all of it written off as someone's large dog or an unusually big coyote, exactly the way wolf reports had always been written off. The collar is the only reason anyone knows it happened. And for every collared wolf like OR7, there are uncollared ones making the same silent journeys right now, leaving no dot on any screen. The wolves coming back to the west are mostly invisible by design. We see the data, we almost never see the animal. The objection to all of this is not whether the wolves are returning, it is whether they should be allowed to. And this is where the story stops being a fairy tale, because to a great many people in the rural West, a returning wolf is not a triumph. It is a threat to a way of making a living. Wolves kill livestock. In 2025, wildlife officials in California made the difficult decision to euthanize 4 wolves from a single pack after those animals killed roughly 70 head of livestock in a matter of months, unable to break them of the habit despite every non-lethal tool available. Colorado, which actually voted to bring wolves back, has poured millions of dollars into the effort and watched ranchers tally their dead cattle while more than half of the reintroduced wolves died. The honest shape of the conflict has 3 parts. The wolves move undetected until the kills begin, and you cannot fence out an animal that walks 100 miles. They are feared and fought hardest by the rural communities who actually have to share the land with them, not by the city voters who welcome them from a distance. And the real obstacle to the wolf's return was never the wilderness, which has plenty of room and plenty of prey. The obstacle is us, and whether we are willing to live with what we say we want back. Honesty requires saying the rest of it plainly. A lone wolf crossing a state line is not a population, and most of these pioneers do not survive. OR 93, the wolf that walked the farthest of all the way to the doorstep of Los Angeles, was killed by a car. Of the wolves Colorado trucked in to start its program, more than half are now dead, shot after wandering into Wyoming, killed defending livestock, lost to vehicles, traps, and poaching. Wolves genuinely do kill cattle and sheep, and the loss to a rancher who finds his animals torn apart is real and not imaginary. The comforting story that wolves single-handedly heal ecosystems and even change the course of rivers is true in part, but badly oversimplified. And in some places, Colorado most of all, this was not a wild return at all. It was a deliberate, bitterly contested, expensive reintroduction that urban voters narrowly forced onto rural counties that did not want it. The comeback is real, but it is partial, it is bloody, and it is fought every step of the way. Because the real claim is more precise than the myth. The science does not say the wolf has retaken the West. It says that a predator we deliberately and very successfully erased from the entire western United States a century ago is walking back into it under its own power, one disperser at a time, crossing whole states to reach ground that has stood empty of wolves for generations. Or 7 was not a miracle. He was a demonstration of what the species does the instant we stop killing it. It comes back. It comes back on its own, looking for nothing more complicated than a mate and a place to raise a family in a country that was once full of wolves and emptied them out on purpose. So it ends where it began, with a dot crossing a line on a screen in December of 2011. Or 7 found his mate. He raised pups in a corner of Oregon that had not held a wolf pack in 70 years. He grew old, which is something almost no wild wolf is allowed to do. And sometime around the start of 2020, at roughly 11 years of age, he slipped out of the count and was gone, having lived and died free in the wild, in a state that had wolves again, in part because of him. His children founded packs of their own. One of his daughters left her pack and walked more than 8,000 miles, searching for territory of her own. Tonight, there are wolves moving through the dark, across the American West, through mountains and forests that fell silent for 100 years, not because we carried every one of them back, but because some of them, given the smallest opening, simply came home.